I love that we start out happy.
Yes. Renee was just saying that she loves when we start out happy. And you should see, we do get very happy talking to each other and welcoming you to the Shamans Cave. I'm Sandra Ingerman.
And I'm Renee Baribeau.
Welcome.
And it's a beautiful day here. It's a beautiful summer day. I'm not sure where you are, but the weather is like perfect temperatures here. And I'm just enjoying the greenery and looking out at the water and all of these new things that the summer is offering me, up here on the island.
Yeah, I get a little bit of a strange kind of joy when science is always wrong. We're having inches of rain in Santa Fe, where according to the weather map, we've had no rain in months and are in severe drought. But yet we're having unbelievable amounts of rain every day. And it's really incredibly beautiful, and it's such a joy. And I don't know the word for it, but to be able to live in the desert and see your trees look as green as they're looking right now, instead of feeling the struggle. It's such a different energy to sink into. And I'm sure everybody who lives in an area of the country has that experience where the land holds a different energy during climactic changes, and that energy surrounds us and affects us too.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's been a little dry up here this summer, so I have to water the garden and things like that. But there's, we live on I guess it's a volcanic, so it doesn't really hold the rain that it gets all winter. It's kind of an interesting thing when you start to really groove with the land that you are relating to, instead of just becoming an observer, where you start to really watch it through seasons and cycles and stuff. But that's not what we're going to talk about. Something that's a little bit deeper today. In fact, when we even talked about the subject, I felt it, and I felt the anguish in my heart, and I felt the tears starting to come out of my eyes, and I'm there like, God, we haven't even talked about the subject yet.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you know, we did a show just recently on judgment, and how a phase of life that I'm moving into, and if I'm moving into it, there's other people who are moving into it, and Renee's moving into her new states of evolution too, of really kind of feeling our own journey and the power of our own journey. But we're also part of a collective, and so once we tap into what's happening in the collective, a lot of anger can come up, but this is not what our listener was writing about. There is the anger that comes up when we see how people are behaving, and we see how people are behaving towards the earth, and we see how people are behaving towards each other. We get really angry. What the situation that this woman is in, if I understand it completely, is she has a child in school who is going to be vaccinated against the COVID, and this is not something that she is supporting or really knows the right decision at this particular point. So it's not that there's anger coming up, but there's anguish coming up about feeling put in situations where you can't actually, your voice doesn't really matter, but you have a child at home who you want to protect and you're not sure what the best action to take is. It's a tough one. I know for myself, I really feel for people who have children right now, and all children come in during challenging times on the planet. That was our destiny. That was our decision. So I've let go of the judgment because it's their journey. But when you're the parent and there are things going on and rules are starting to change that you're not sure is actually the best thing for your child, what do you do? What do you do in a world where you're not in control of everything that is going on, but yet the decisions are being made in your behalf?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where the anguish comes up, is decisions being made in your behalf and the feeling like you're losing control over your own life.
And I would just like to say that we're not presenting a position towards vaccines or against vaccines because, both, well, I'll speak for myself. I think it's a real personal decision whether or not you support becoming vaccinated or not. But I think what Sandra's speaking to more, and this woman is speaking to more, is about those things that we have no control over, like the children. If you have a child who's using drugs and alcohol, and they're out on the streets of LA or your city streets, and you can't control them, or you're in a situation where somebody you love is dying. I mean, those are those anguish producing moments where you can't move one way or another, without absolutely honoring the grief and feeling it. And I think as parents with children, in fact, I was just asked to write an article for Energy magazine about it's a family issue. And how I'm looking at it is about bringing more nature-based practices into your family and the cycle. But, those are people who can make that choice. If you send your child to an elementary school at a public school, and those are your options because you work or whatever other your reasons are, and there's decisions there that are beyond your control, that could be that could cause a lot of angst. Am I correct? I don't want to speak for you at all.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, anytime I feel out of control, my power animal back in the 1980s. The fun thing about my power animal is he has a sense of humor, and I used to love to fly, and the worst of turbulence was I loved it, and I felt like I was being rocked by Mother Earth. And then I was in an airplane crash, and my body took that as flying isn't safe. And so I developed a terrible fear of flying while I was teaching 40 workshops a year, traveling around. I was on the road 300 days a year with a fear of flying. And so I went to my power animal and I said, why now? And he said, because you have too many control issues. And we're trying to break some of them for you. So we try to control our safety, and that's one of the things that can bring us to a place of anguish. As I was reading more of what our listener wrote, a lot of it is that existential crisis, that comes up in times like these, where we don't have control and where we feel like we don't have a say of what decisions are being made for us. And there are, I think, I think a lot of people don't know what an existential crisis is, but I think we all go through existential crises, and existential crises bring us to an incredible place of growth.
Mm. And since we're all connected, it sounds like we're having a large community growth at the same time. You know, I think a lot of people thought, okay, all right, well, I can handle this COVID for the 6 months or the 9 months or the year or the lockdown type of thing. But then here it is, you know, midway through year 2, and we're realizing, like, I think that's where the existential crisis really comes in, is like, oh, but this is not going away, or this is forever. You know, it might look different, but like we crossed over a threshold into some unknown territory. And for a lot of people, they held a different vision. And so what happens when the vision you're holding, like, you know, we all had this great new age vision of, you know, we're all moving towards like what Sandra calls the age of Aquarius. I think it was more of a big windstorm personally, but you know, that then here we are, and now what? You know, and do we want to get sucked into that hole of angst? Or for me, what it is I look around at my life today. You know, what choices do I get to make? Okay, I get to have organic juices if I want. You know, I get to go rake the yard. You know, I have a beautiful view. I mean, and so if I start to ball up everything that everyone's experiencing, in addition to what my actual experience is, it can become like a heavy anchor out in the harbor, and I'm going down. And that's not to say that I'm not aware all of the time that we're connected. Like even at the talk of this woman's talk on angst, I started to feel it in my chest and the tears started to, you know, it doesn't mean that I don't have empathy or compassion. It means that I'm working diligently on my little corner, my little half acre of the world, in order to show up better and differently and, you know, and fully.
Yeah, you said that, you know, incredibly well. And we've actually talked about some of this on other shows of the importance of coming back to your own light, coming back to your own self, because you can get so lost out there. And I've shared this story on half of our shows of, you know, back in the 60s, I had to stop reading the news. I stopped. I didn't know who the president of the United States was for probably about 10 years. And that was how I healed, because I had a true existential crisis during the time where there was so much inequality about race, where I didn't believe in the war that was going on in Vietnam, and I was protesting and I was demonstrating and I was getting hurt. And so I was young, you know, I wasn't even 18 years old yet. And the message that I got was, no matter how I feel about something, I can't make a change. Mm-hmm. And what that did to me is I basically had a nervous breakdown. I could function in the world. I got straight A's in school. I worked. But I couldn't handle knowing anything that was going on in the world. So I didn't listen to the news. I didn't read a newspaper. There was obviously no internet at the time. And I saved myself. I saved myself doing that. Now I can listen to anything and it doesn't affect me. But I had to learn. My existential crisis became so deep that I had to learn how step by step. It was like one day I was at work and I saw a newspaper and I read a headline. And then the next day I saw an article that looked interesting and I read the first line. So sometimes we have to step back from what triggers us and we have to find those places of strength inside of us. And what I keep talking about of those places of strength inside of ourselves is our own light that we shine and the love that we were born with. Both of those together are what can create or discreate whatever needs to happen next.
I don't know if I was so broken inside, like that the wounding was so deep that I didn't have the capacity to, I was a little younger than you too, with the war and stuff like that. I liked the music more and the pot smoking and I was more on the other side of it all than thinking about, the consequences. And even still, like, in my teaching, I have people who are like, last week, I want these wins to be non-denominational. And I'm thinking, and I said in the middle of a lecture, this just isn't my issue. And I don't know if that makes me a bad teacher or, I run the LGBTQ conference, but it's not the issue. I don't know, maybe it's just too small focus. I don't know, but the angst that I have felt has been more about the personal suffering that people experience, the people that I've worked with, that they can't be present in their lives and that they can't, they can't be of service. And, it's more I'm much more at a personal scale, I guess, than a global person.
Yeah, I think for me, and I've actually said this on lectures that 20,000-30,000 people have listened to. If every woman, this is just my belief, if every woman in the world would stand up and say that every child on this planet deserves a home and deserves food, we would be living in a different reality. And so for me, I feel until that happens, I feel then what all I can do is my personal work. That's it. Because this is a community issue. And in now, currently, and all the way back in time, when these kinds of issues come up about inequality, when any kind of issue comes up about I don't agree with, either a tribe splits up or another tribe comes in and takes over and conquers. And so that creates division. Basically, that's what we're talking about, is it creates division. So the question that I'm raising is, on a planet with so many people, how do we come together, and how do all the women come together and stand up and say every single child on this planet should have enough to eat and should have a place to sleep? I think it can be done, but right now it seems overwhelming. And so it takes me to keep my sanity so I don't go back into a place of feeling like I'm having a mental breakdown or moving into a state of existential crisis and anguish. It means coming back to myself and doing my own work. But that's where the tricky thing is. I'm 68, And so I've had this whole life of experiences where so many of you who are listening to our show are first starting, you're first growing your life. I mean, I love it. You're first growing your life, you're first growing your careers, and you're looking for some tools to move forward. And so you have very different choices that you have to make about how rebellious you want to be, how radical you want to be, or if the first step, because our listener was asking for tools, for me, the first step is finding that place within that is beyond your ego, that is a place of spirit and is a place of heart, and where a different energy gets emanated. And then you start to learn a different way of being in the world. And then you can go out and be more of a rational voice. But if the voice is coming from so much wounding, the voice sounds wounded.
That's so true. Right when you were talking, the winds piped up and said, maybe you could do a little loosening exercise for people with some wind and some angst so that they could maybe even loosen up the angst just a little bit to let it go.
That'd be wonderful.
Okay. Sometimes Sandra and I will plan out an exercise. And in fact, next week we're going to be just pretty much doing a journey and a little talking. But sometimes they'll just come in right naturally, and we'll change mid-wind. Mid-wind, I like that. So, it was so crazy, the wind that just came in. A lot of people in my 10-month apprenticeship program have been working with this wind in this month, so it's kind of curious that this wind come up, because it very rarely comes up for me. It's Shu, the ancient Egyptian wind of separation. And it goes right into where we're going next week about grounding yourself in nature. But in this particular exercise, and this will be just a quick little experience of how Shu can separate you out from your anxiety a minute, or your angst, because the angst can create anxiety, so that you can have a little bit of spaciousness around it in order to let something new come in. So what I'll do is invite you to close your eyes. And think of something, and not the heaviest angst in your life, nothing like an existential crisis. And if you have an existential crisis, maybe you should put it over in a flower or a blade of grass for this exercise, so that we're just really working on something a little bit lighter, because this isn't a healing session. And what I would ask you to do is scan your body, if you've left it in your body from head to toe, something that is creating angst for you in this moment, and locate it where it's living in your body. And if you put it into a flower, a tree over there, scan the tree, scan the flower, see where you put that angst. Is it in the petals? Is it in the middle of the flower? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to invite Shu in, and I'm going to blow the wind whistle 3 times. And on that first wind breath, and ground yourself into nature, so that you can really see if what you're feeling in your body or in your flower is real, where you're feeling it, what part. You can divide it into sections if that's easier. On the second one, we're going to invite in Shu to give it spaciousness around the energetic. And on that third wind breath, we're going to let it all go. We're going to send it back out with light and love, and transmute it, one of Sandra's words, with light and love. Are we ready? Breathe in deeply. And as you're breathing in, scan your body and see where you're holding angst in your body. And now breathe that energetic out into the earth through your sacrum, down into the belly of the mother. And on the next wind breath in, imagine Shu coming in. And Shu is the separator, the wind that separates the heavens from the earth. And let's get some heaven and earth perspective on this angst. And now check back in and see if there's some spaciousness around your angst. Because on that next wind breath out, we're going to take that energetic with the help of Shu, take it out beyond the furthest galaxy and transmute it with love and light. And see if we can loosen up and free this in our bodies. And now scan around you or check the flower or whatever you are working with and see if there's a little bit more spaciousness between the earth and the heavens for you in this, holding this in your body and this angst, if it's a little bit lighter. And then welcome back.
I love that. I really did feel an amazing amount of spaciousness inside of me, and it felt really good. And so it's just a reminder, for me, it's just a reminder of how much we allow ourselves to be burdened with and how much space that takes up in our life. If I don't want you to reflect on that to a place of OCD like I would do, but if you just tune into how much energy you put into other places, it answers a lot of questions.
Wow, that was a pretty powerful wind spin with Shu, and thank you, Shu, for coming for us today, and thank you to all the listeners who are willing to join us week after week as we venture through sometimes hard subjects, sometimes more fun, and next week Sandra's going to do a journey that I'm really looking forward to. And make sure you follow us over at shamanstv.com and sign up to be on our mailing list and share our show. Go over, on Facebook, share it. Facebook's now doing podcasts, and, we want our page to become a podcast page. So please continue to share it. Join our group, follow our page, and we'll see you again next week.
Blessings, everyone.